Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Another golf ball review for you today, and we are doing the Quantix F35 Control. So this golf ball does hold a little bit of meaning to me because it is the first golf ball I actually ever reviewed on my channel, period. It was back in the day and I didn't even have the numbers yet. I was just going on the course and hitting them around, trying to get a testing for it. And it did okay. It did pretty good for the most part, but now we can actually back that up with numbers. This is actually the Gen 2. The one I tested before was the Gen 1. So this is, the most recent one they have. And I'm interested to see. Now, one other thing about this golf ball I do remember is that it actually supposedly is the longest golf ball in the world. I remember Tour Golf Experience actually tested it against the Pro V1 and did get an extra 5 or 6 yards. Their main problem, though, is that it was very, very loud. Very loud. So I do remember that well. So they have done some things right. Quantix is a direct-to-consumer company based out of Texas. They brought on a designer of the golf ball who worked on a lot of big-name golf balls. Max Fly back in the 80s, 90s, some of the early Nike balls in the early 2000s, which kind of makes me a little worried because the golf ball market's changed quite a bit. Guys like Snell have gotten away with it because they've been making golf balls every single year up until now. My question would be, whoever they have working for them now, has he been keeping up to date with the market? Has he been seeing the changes that are being made to make them softer and make them feel different? Because remember, golf balls 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they were all rocks. I mean, it was all very firm. We didn't have the technology to make them super soft like we do now. Maybe we had the technology, maybe they just didn't. Maybe we just weren't there yet, as in the golfing world. But overall, let's dive into it now. Let's see how this golf ball does. So getting into the design of the golf ball, as you can see, the Quantix logo is kind of unique, but let's be honest, if you saw that on the course, if you picked it up out of the woods and saw that, you would not know what to think. I would immediately be like, oh, junk ball, Slazenger, whatever. I would just, something I'd just take for the home, for, hit around the yard at home, or I would just hit it into the water or whatever. It doesn't have a logo that really feels premium. Now, this one, compared to the F18 Tour, which is Quantix's other golf ball, it does look a little cheaper. It does feel and look cheaper because this is a proprietary blend they have. It's a mix of different plastics and everything, which I normally don't like. Now, I will say that Quantix has been one of the better ones so far just because they were on the curve before everybody else, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's always a good thing, so we'll definitely be testing that. If you look on the side there, we have a terrible alignment tool. Honestly, that is very small, very skinny. I don't like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of our Golf Dotz. We're going to actually go ahead and go over that there. As you can see, we're going to put a better alignment tool on it, so now we can actually see it a little bit better, and we can actually align our putts and actually maybe make some. So that would help a little bit. Overall, it's an okay look. It's nothing special. The numbers are going to have to really do something here to make me want to play this golf ball. It's going to have to be long. It's going to have to feel really good. So let's get out to the chipping and putting green. Let's see how it did around the green. Nice. Okay, so it feels pretty soft, to be honest with you. There is a slight firm press there, but nothing too crazy. And honestly, it does a pretty good job of feeling soft. Not as soft as your Chrome Soft or your Max Fly, and even a lot of Titleist balls. I wouldn't say it's as soft as that. It's just a slight bit firmer than that. But honestly, it still feels pretty good, and there's a good enough amount of feedback. And the ball rolls really true. It doesn't come off dead at all, so you really shouldn't have any issues putting. Goodness. Okay, so chipping around the green, the ball does feel a little firmer than the F18 Tour does. There's definitely a little more presence of a click. But the really disappointing thing is there's not much spin. I mean, I would expect a golf ball in this price range to have a decent amount of checkup, but there's just really none to be had. I mean, I've tried to hit the ball a couple different ways. I've tried opening the face and hitting a cut a little bit more. I've tried, really hitting down on the golf ball. I just cannot get it to spin that well at all, and that's really disappointing for something in this price point. Okay, so the F35 Control, honestly, it's very firm, it's very loud. There's a loud click there, especially once you get to the driver. Once you get to the driver, it's insane the amount of click and how loud it is. It actually kind of hurts your ears a little bit. It does seem to have a good amount of spring off of it, but honestly, I'm not sure it's worth it given how it feels and how it sounds. That would bother a lot of golfers in my book. Let's go inside though and let's see how those numbers are. Hopefully they kind of redeem it a little bit. Okay, so far, nothing too special. So hopefully these numbers can really come in clutch for it because it's going to need it. 89.7 on your ball mile per hour speed for the 9-iron, not that great. 123.4 low, 116.2 low, 22.8, that's a mid ball flight. Nothing special there, unfortunately. Like I mentioned before, the golf ball does feel firm and it's definitely louder than your average golf ball for sure. Getting into the 7-iron, we are looking at 7,040 on your spin. So that's a high amount of spin. 107.6, that's not bad, that's average. 159.4 and 148.3 are a little low, but that's only because the spin's so high. If the spin wasn't that high, I wouldn't be losing distance. And then it actually did have a higher launch here, 20.6 compared to my average of 18.2. So it launched high, it had a ton of spin, and it still went pretty far. So that's actually pretty good. I mean, it's decent. It's not fantastic by any means, but those are respectable numbers. Getting into the hybrid now, we're looking at 3,770, which is a little lower than my average. 119.2, that's pretty good. That's a good ball speed. 198.9, very good there. That's respectable. Very respectable, actually. 185.2, again, very good. 14.9 on your ball launch, which is mid-high, close to high, but sorry, probably mid-high. And then, so overall, those numbers are pretty good. So the ball is compressing a little bit better, which leads me to believe that it is a firmer golf ball, which I think we knew that at this point, but it's definitely not going to be for your slower swingers. When you go to Quantix's website, they do say it's for all swing speeds. I'm going to go ahead and call some BS on that. I think at least, at minimum, you've got to be swinging 92, 93 like me with a driver, because if you're not, the short irons are going to come up a little short for you for sure. Maybe 90 mile an hour you can get away with it, but anything under that, you need to stay away. Going into the driver, 2,641, so low spinning there, good. 245 on your distance, so that is a good number, but it's definitely not the best I've ever tested, or even recently. 135 on your ball mile per hour speed, that's good, not great. 224.5, good, not great. And then a 14.8, that's a mid ball flight. So unfortunately, we weren't able to replicate the results. It is very loud, but we weren't able to get that distance, unfortunately. So I imagine that noise is going to turn off a lot of golfers. No one wants to have their ears rung every time they tee off. All right, real quick, I'll touch on the durability before I get into my final thoughts. The durability is actually pretty good, to be honest with you. I mean, my poor little Golf Dotz didn't last, a little flame on the front, but other than that, it feels really good. There's not any scratches, there's not any cuts. So I would say Quantix has their durability down pretty well. Honestly, this will last you a whole round and probably more, probably a round and a half, to be honest with you. It really survived the 60 to 70 shots really well. Okay, so my final thoughts on the F35 Control, who's the golf ball for? Well, I will say that I did enjoy using it a little bit more than I did the F18 Tour. The F18 Tour ended up being, honestly, a really big disappointment. And I was just kind of overall expecting a little bit more, especially considering they've done a price increase. You know, anytime you come out with a Gen 2 or a Gen 3, you know, and it's a newer model and you increase the price, I do expect there to be some reasonable additions to the golf ball one way or the other. I expect to get a little more distance, maybe it's a little softer, maybe a little more spin. But here, honestly, I felt like we kind of took a step back, and the problem with that price increase is now we're in a market along with the Vice line. We're very close to a lot of like the Srixon Divide. Actually, the Srixon Divide ends up being a little bit cheaper, and you can just go to the store and buy those. The Cut DC is another one that comes to the top of my head, $29.99, the Anesis. I mean, honestly, we've tested a lot of golf balls at this point, and there's been a lot of really good winners in this price range. And these numbers aren't necessarily bad. It honestly looks like most firm golf balls, most X model golf balls or Tour line. You start off with the short irons, you don't get a lot of success, and then you move into the mid iron, and it's okay, and then you move into the hybrid, and it's really good, and the driver is pretty good as well. That's with most X line golf balls. So when Quantix says that, oh, this golf ball is for every swing speed, I just don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. I think that if you're below 95 mile an hour, to be honest with you, you probably shouldn't go near it, which really leaves now only two golf balls that Quantix have. They have the F18 Tour, which is for like 100 mile an hour up, and then they basically have an F35 Control for 95 and up, but everything below that, they don't have anything for. So I would like to see Quantix going forward, one, continue to improve the golf balls they have, but also come out with something more of a two-piece model that, you know, your average Joe like me and some of the guys like you who watch this channel can use. Something that has a lot of forgiveness, a lot of softness to it, and it's just going to kind of shave a few strokes off your game that way. As always, guys, keep watching to keep saving, keep learning. I appreciate you being here. Tomorrow, I will be coming out with an announcement video, kind of giving you an update, and there's also a big announcement in there. And then also, we have some more golf ball reviews coming up as well, some of the new 2023 models, but we'll get there soon enough. See you then.